guys, I'm Lauren and this is my April wrap-up. I read 14 books in April, so I'm really excited to share lots of books with you today. And I want to give you some stats here at the beginning just so that you kind of know what to expect from this wrap-up. But I read 14 books this month. 9 of those were audiobooks, which is really abnormal for me. I don't read a lot of audiobooks because I have a hard time focusing when I'm trying to do other things and listen at the same time. But this is the spring season, the greenhouse season, and my dad owns greenhouses, so I've been working there and I literally plant plants all day long. And it's super easy to concentrate on an audiobook while you're doing that because you don't need to focus on much else. So I was able to read 9 audiobooks in the greenhouses while I was working, which is awesome this month. And then I read 5 ebooks and 0 physical books, which it's really kind of sad that I haven't had a physical book in my hand for a long time, but I'm just finding it so convenient and easy to read on my e-reader and on my phone. And I'm getting, books from the library and free books from different authors. So it's just been really convenient. And I can't go to the library and get physical books right now because it's closed. So the e-reader is the next best option. So that's the breakdown of form of the book. And then as far as star ratings go, I read 1 2-star book, 3 3-star books, 8 4-star books, and 2 5-star books this month. So I actually had a really great reading month too. I was kind of preparing for this video and looking back on everything that I had read, and there's so many good books in here. So I'm really excited to talk about them with you guys. And I usually go in chronological order with the order in which I read them, but I really have been liking it lately when people go in order of their like of the book. So I'm going to start with my least favorite book and move on to my most favorite book at the very end and save the best for last. But I won't be talking about 2 of the books in this wrap up because they're for a video that I'm doing with kind of like a secret TBR, and there will be a vlog for that. So that will probably be one of the next few videos that I put out, and you'll be able to hear my thoughts on everything there. Maybe I'll include them in May's wrap up, we'll see. But yeah, I'm just not going to talk about them today. One of them was a 2-star book and the other was a 4-star book. So if the numbers aren't adding up in your head, that's where those ones went. But starting with my second least favorite book of the month, my 3-star book, it was The Death of Mrs Westaway by Ruth Ware. So this book follows Hal, a tarot card reader who is kind of down on her luck. She's really struggling financially. She's still grieving the loss of her mother, who was killed in a car accident at least a year before this story takes place. One day, she receives a letter in the mail naming her as the beneficiary in her grandmother's will, and she knows that it's not her. It's not supposed to be for her. She's not the Harriet that they were looking for because her grandmother's been dead for many, many years, but she is so desperate for money, and she feels that she has a pretty good ability to read people and kind of BS her way through stuff because she's a tarot card reader and she really doesn't truly believe that the cards have power. So she decides that she is going to pretend to be this granddaughter, and she goes to the funeral, spends the last of her money on a train ticket to go to this funeral, and she ends up staying with the family. It's at their home, which is the Trepasson house, and it's really freaking creepy. And she realizes that there is more deceit going on here than just her own, and that she may actually be connected to the Westaway family. And so that's kind of the mystery there. It's an interesting concept for a book, and I did like parts of this, but overall I was pretty disappointed in this one. I always want to love Ruth Ware books, and I always think I'm going to love them, and especially this one because I feel like a lot of people really enjoyed this one, but I just didn't. I did listen to this one on audio, and I am glad that I read it because it's been on my TBR for a really long time, and I want to hope that there's another Ruth Ware book out there that I will love because I loved The Turn of the Key. But yeah, like I said, this one was just not it for me. I think if I had tried to read this in physical form, it would have taken me forever because I really just wasn't that into it. The things that this book did well were the atmosphere. The Trepassen house was really creepy, and I wish that there had been more time spent describing the house and you know, creating the atmosphere a little bit more. Even though it was really well done, I just wanted more of it. And I also thought the use of Hal's tarot card knowledge sprinkled throughout the story was really interesting, because that did tie in quite a few places, and that was, I think, really unique to this book. So I did think it did that well, but I did not like the characters in this book at all. Like, I just did not feel connected to any of them, and I didn't think that they were really that well developed, especially the Westaway family members. And when I read a story, I really want to be connected and feel like I know who these people are that I'm reading about, and that just didn't happen in this book. And I also just didn't really love the way that the mystery was revealed in this book. I felt like it was very slow in parts, and it was like lacking in some places too. So I honestly was kind of confused throughout this book, and like not in a good way, not the way that you want to be confused in a mystery thriller. So overall, this one just was okay for me. I am not mad that I read it, but I just didn't love it that much. The next book that was also 3 stars was Wilder Girls by Rory Powers, and this one follows our main characters, Hetty, Byatt, and Reese. They're 3 girls at an all-girls boarding school who 18 months prior to the start of the story experienced the tox, and basically it was this virus or something that spread on the island where their school is located, and transformed or killed everything on the island. Girls that did survive end up having these really gruesome deformities, and many people did die from it, and they have these flare-ups every so often too, where things are getting gradually worse, like their symptoms or their deformities are getting gradually worse each time a flare-up occurs. So we're following these 3 main characters, and Hetty is kind of the main character that we follow, and when one of the girls goes missing, the other 2 have to kind of go on a quest to find her and to figure out like what the hell is really happening on this island, because they are starting to realize that it's a little bit more sinister than what they imagined. So this one I really wanted to like, but I just really didn't love it. I listened to this one on audiobook as well, and the audiobook is done just fine. It wasn't that. I was expecting this to be a lot more gory and gruesome and more horror than what it was. I feel like people really talked this up about being one that you need to make sure your stomach can handle, and it was really creepy, and there was a lot of gore, and I just didn't, I don't know, I wasn't that fazed by it. Maybe I'm just weird, but I was really expecting and kind of wanting a little bit more horror than what there was. I think this book had a lot of potential, and I really liked the environment and the characters and the plot, but I just felt like it was very slow, and the author could have packed a lot more action into the story. I just felt like it was still lacking, and if you've read this, you know the ending frickin' sucks, so that was also a huge part in what gave this a 3-star and not anything higher. But I don't know, I think it had potential, and I can see why some people really like this, but it just really, it wasn't for me. So I gave it 3 stars. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it or that I didn't like it, I just didn't love it, and I wasn't very impressed by it. Okay, so the next 2 books on the list are actually companion novels, and I actually gave the second one 3.5 stars and the first 4 stars. So the first book is Next Year in Havana by Chanel Cleeton, and the second is When We Left Cuba by Chanel Cleeton. And these books follow sisters from the Perez family. The first book follows Elisa, and she is the middle daughter of this very wealthy family from Cuba who has to flee to the United States during the revolution because they're worried about their lives, basically, when Fidel Castro takes over. So they lose all of their wealth and have to move to Florida and kind of recreate their lives. And in this book, we follow Elisa's point of view back in 1958 when she's in Cuba as a 19-year-old. And then we also follow her granddaughter, Marisol, as she goes to Cuba to spread her grandmother's ashes after Elisa has died. Like, that's her dying wish, is for her granddaughter to go to Cuba and to spread her ashes. And so Marisol goes to Cuba and she's trying to kind of figure out where she should spread her grandmother's ashes, and she's visiting all of these places where her grandmother told her stories about. While she's there, she falls in love and also kind of discovers this big secret about her family that's been hidden since 1958. So this one was really good. Let me quick tell you about the second book, and then I'll kind of compare the two. So When We Left Cuba, that is the second book, and that one follows Beatrice, and that is the oldest daughter in the family, and she is known for being beautiful and for breaking all these hearts. She's been proposed to like 5 or 7 times and shot down all these men. We follow her after they've been exiled to the United States, and so her whole story takes place in the United States, and she's kind of recruited by the CIA to infiltrate Fidel Castro's inner circle, and she's like, you know, brought into this whole world of espionage and revenge. And I don't want to give away a whole lot more about what that revenge is for, because you figure that out in the first book. But essentially, what I really liked about these books was Cuba and getting to gain some knowledge about Cuba, because to be honest, I haven't read anything set in Cuba before, and I really just knew the basics of Cuban politics and all of that. But I really liked the first book better because it spent more time in Cuba. We're getting the point of view from Elisa while she's in Cuba, and we're getting Marisol's point of view while she's visiting Cuba. And in the second book, we follow Beatrice mostly in the United States. So I think that one was a little bit more lacking in terms of my interest because of that. And also, I really thought I was gonna like Beatrice's character a lot more than what I did. I thought like, oh man, she's this strong, confident, beautiful woman. And I thought I was really gonna like the espionage part of things, but I really actually appreciated like the quiet courage that Elisa had. And so when I compare the two of them, I liked Elisa's story better. I liked her romance a heck of a lot better. I did like the romance with Marisol, the granddaughter, where when she goes to Cuba, she falls in love with a Cuban man there, and I really liked that romance. But I don't know, I felt like Beatrice's story was kind of lacking in that. She does have a romantic relationship, but I did not like it. And it's just way more political. So I like a little bit of politics in my books. Kind of. Let's not even lie. I don't really like politics. So I think that this was okay because it was teaching me about Cuba's politics, and it's obviously a very interesting history. But I just thought maybe there was a little bit too much of it, and so I liked the first book better for that reason too. I do want to say that I started reading Next Year in Havana, the first book, I started listening on audiobook, and I got about 50% through, and I quit because I did not like the narrator for Marisol. And so I borrowed it on ebook version, and I completely started it over and read it in ebook form, and I liked that a lot better. But I did listen to When We Left Cuba on audio because it had a different narrator. So I just want to throw that out there. I didn't like the audiobook for the first one. It was fine for the second one. The next book, which was a 4-star read, was Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. And because this is a mystery thriller, and I like to go into my mystery thrillers blind, I'm not going to tell you much about this one. I think the synopsis gives too much away. So I will say that I really liked this book, and I definitely want to read more Karen Slaughter books because I thought this one was awesome. Again, it had some political aspects to it, which is why I gave it a 4-star, because the storyline just wasn't my interests, but it was still done really well. So I don't know. Yeah, it was a 4-star. It's still really good, and I really, really enjoyed it. This book like immerses you. I felt like I was in the story. It was such good detail, such good writing. I thought the characters were great. I thought the storyline was great, and I think This one gets some lower ratings because it is a little bit slow, but I really liked that. I did not think it was too slow. I thought it was perfect and how everything was revealed. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. So I would definitely, if you're a thriller lover, I would definitely recommend this one. And the next book I read was also a thriller and was also 4 stars. And this one is You Are Not Alone by Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks. And again, this is another mystery thriller, so I don't want to give a whole lot away with the plot, but this one follows Shay Miller, who is a lonely, down on her luck woman who witnesses a stranger's suicide one day and feels strangely connected to her, and so she attends this woman's memorial service and she meets the Moore sisters there, and the Moore sisters kind of befriend her and take her under their wing, and she is just enthralled by them and thinks that they're the most perfect people ever and just cannot believe that they want to be friends with her, and maybe she doesn't want to be friends with them. So that's all I'm gonna say. But this was twisty. This was really good. This fast-paced. It totally had me hooked, and I will say this is one of those books where you just want the main character to realize what is happening so much sooner, because it is just like painful to watch her fall into trap after trap. So this was just like, oh, it just made you feel uneasy the whole time, and you kind of knew it was going to happen. I will say some of it was predictable, but I was still surprised in the end. So I thought it was really good. I would definitely recommend this one. I am officially a fan of the co-authorship between Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks, because I love their books and I can't wait to see what they put out next. Number 9 on my list is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and this was also a 4-star read for me. This one follows Mia and Pearl, a mother and daughter who moved to Shaker Heights, which is like this perfect, super orderly, I think they call it like the first planned neighborhood of the United States. They rent a house from the Richardson family. Mia is an artist, and she is constantly, her and Pearl are constantly moving around so that she can find inspiration for her next art project. And when they move to Shaker Heights, Pearl is just praying and hoping that this is the time that they will stay and she can finally make some friends and grow some roots somewhere. And as Pearl becomes friends with the Richardson kids, there's 4 kids in the family, their lives become entwined, and all these secrets surface and truths are uncovered about both families that just really make for a good story. So this one has a lot of content. I will say that this story, I feel like it covers like everything imaginable in a book. And it was so good, you guys. I want to think that I'm gonna like have these different opinions from the mainstream, but that's why these books are popular, is because they're good. So I'm really glad that I enjoyed this one. I didn't think it was a perfect read. I didn't like certain parts of the story as much as I liked others. I felt like it was a little bit long. I feel like they could have cut out some of the plot points and just maybe developed a few others more fully. It could have been the same length and that would have been fine, but I feel like there was like so much going on. And some people like that, but sometimes I just want a little bit more of a quiet read. So there is a strong theme of motherhood in this book, and that was what I really connected with the most. I just loved some of the things that both Mia and Elena, I think it is, Mrs. Richardson, had to say about their children sometimes. Some really good quotes, and it just really made me feel something and made me connect as a mother. So I really liked that theme in the book. And Mia is one of the most interesting characters that I have read in a really long time. She is so complex, and her history is so strange that you find out as you read the book. And I love the descriptions of her art and her photography skill and everything throughout the book. I thought that was really well done. But I will say I started watching the Little Fires Everywhere TV series on Hulu, and she is not at all how I pictured her in the TV series. Like, she's completely different than the vibe that I got from her as a character in the book. So it's a little bit weird. The TV show is just really different overall, so I feel like they kind of took the main ideas of the book and the names of the characters pretty much and like you know, the main traits of them and kind of created a new story. But yeah, I like the show and I like the book both, but they are completely different. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. I thought it was really good. The next 4-star book I read was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, and this one follows Cass, who can see ghosts ever since she almost died about a year ago, and her best friend, Jacob, is actually a ghost. And to make matters even more weird, her parents are famous authors and soon-to-be TV stars who are ghost hunters. And so in this book, her parents get this new TV show contract and they go to Scotland, to one of the most haunted places in the world, to film their first episode, and Cass goes with them. While she's there, she discovers that there may actually be a purpose to her ability to see ghosts. And so this is a middle grade book, and it's, you know, I'm definitely not the intended audience for a middle grade book, but I freaking loved this. This was so good, and I think I read it at just the right time because a lot of the stuff that I read this month was pretty heavy, and so I really just needed something like light and enjoyable, and this totally did it. It was so good. Cass is super cute. Jacob is funny as a ghost. And honestly, even though I'm a mystery thriller lover, I haven't read a lot of ghost stories. So this was quite different from, you know, most of the things that I've read before. I loved the setting, being in Scotland. You got to really get some details about the city. It was just really good. I definitely will keep reading this series. I know it's middle grade, but it's super good, and I'm excited to see like what other cities that they go to, because I'm assuming each book is going to be set in a different city as they film the different episodes. So yeah, it's really good. I would definitely recommend this one if you're looking for something like light and fun. It was really good. The next book on my list is Magic Study by Maria V. Schneider, and this is the second book in the study series. The first book is Poison Study, which I talked about in my last wrap up. And this was a reread for me. I actually bumped this one down a star, so I'll talk about that in just a second. But in this book, you still follow Yelena, the main character, and she travels to Sitia, where she meets her family, which she has not seen since she was kidnapped years and years ago, and also learns how to use her magic. And obviously there's more to it than that, but it's a second book, so I don't need to get into all of it. I will say that, yeah, this just wasn't as good the second time around as it was the first for me. I think my reading tastes have changed a little bit, and I've also become a little bit more of a critical reader, and so there were things in here that I maybe didn't notice the first time I read it that I didn't enjoy as much this second time. First of all, Valak, her man, is not like in this book at all, which is such a bummer because he is like my favorite part of the first book. And neither are Janko and Ari, who are like the sidekick guys that are my absolute favorite. So it's missing a lot of the favorite characters from the first book, which is a big bummer. But also, Yelena just like gets annoyingly reckless in this second book. Like she just charges into situations without really even thinking or asking for help. And they address that in the book. Like her mentor Iris, who is also a magician, she, you know, gives her a hard time about that a lot, but it still just was like kind of annoying sometimes. And then I think I really would have enjoyed this a lot more if it would have focused on her family a little bit more, because the villain plot really takes over in this book, which I'm sure is what a lot of people want because that's where the action is. But I really, really wanted there to be more development of relationships with her family. I love her dad. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I really wish that that was a part of it. But I definitely know that this, you know, I'm reading Fire Study right now in May, and I know that this is going to be one of my favorite fantasy series, probably of all time, and that I probably will reread it again in the future. And I definitely would like to continue on with the companion series, which is the Soul Finder series. So I'm not trying to knock it. I still loved it. Obviously, 4 stars is still great, but yeah, it was just a little bit of a different reading experience this time around. Moving on to my next book, which was a 4.5 star for me, was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. And I'm just like obsessed with Helen Huang, you guys. I cannot freaking wait until her next book. So this one is actually the first book. I read these out of order. I read The Bride Test first, which is like the second, I don't know if it's a series or just kind of companion novels, but yeah, I read The Bride Test first, and now I'm reading The Kiss Quotient. But this one follows Stella, who is a autistic woman who is very high functioning and super successful in everything in life, pretty much except for love. And her mom, she's 30 now, and so her mom is kind of telling her, you know, you need to find a man, you need to get married and start having babies. And she's just really afraid that because of her autism, she's never going to find anyone that will truly accept her for who she is. She's very intimidated by dating because anytime that she's dated in the past, it hasn't gone well and sex has been awkward and she's never really enjoyed sex before. So she thinks that she maybe needs some practice. And so she hires a male escort. She picks Michael, who is like this good looking guy, to kind of like be her sex mentor, I guess. Like she has this whole lesson plan set out that she wants him to teach her and to go through all the different sexual experiences so that she can become, so that she can have experience. So this is so cute. The only reason I docked a star was because the miscommunication trope is used at the end, and I hate that trope. I hate it when they do that. But this is so cute, you guys. These books are so good. I love that it's own voices because Helen Huang is an autistic woman, so I think that is so cool. The sex scenes are steamy, but it's also like super cute. It's just so good, you guys. I highly recommend these. I think even if you aren't a romance lover, these are just, I don't know, they're just good. Now, maybe they are a little steamy if you're not a romance lover, but just try them. They're really good if you haven't read them. All right, now we're finally to our 2 5-star books, the last 2 books on this list. So number 13 is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This book follows Kaya, who is abandoned as a 6-year-old child by both her parents and her siblings and kind of her whole town. And she's left to live in the marsh pretty much by herself. The marsh it becomes her whole life. It not only like gives her what she needs to survive, but it also turns her into this expert on its wildlife, its plants, animals, insects, and also inspires her art. She becomes a really great artist, and it's all based on the marsh's wildlife. So, you know, you kind of follow her whole adolescence growing up, but then she meets a boy in the marsh one day and they become friends, and it kind of turns her whole lonely existence upside down. And while all this is happening, we're also following a murder mystery in town. The golden boy of the town is found dead, and so you're following the investigation of the murder as well. And is Kaya involved? Read it and find out. So this is so good, you guys. Like, I totally understand why this was like one of the top books. I can't remember what year. I think it was a Goodreads Choice Award winner maybe last year. 2018, not 2019, but oh, you guys, it's just so good. I did listen to the audiobook for this one, and Cassandra Campbell does the best job with the voices in this. She really makes you feel like you are there in North Carolina in the marsh, and it's so good. So this book is very quiet. If you like action-packed, you probably won't enjoy this, but if you like a good quiet read like I do, this is perfect. This book had everything that I love in it. It had a survival story, it had a murder mystery, it had nature and art, friendships, hope, love, like, oh, it's so good. It had everything that I need in a book all in one place. So this is just precious. Her relationship with Jumpin and his wife is just like, oh, and the romance just like made my heart so happy. The murder mystery gave it like that mystery appeal. It was just so good, you guys. I love this one. And one thing that I love is that you get to follow her from when she's 6 years old all the way until she dies. So that's not something that you get very often in a book, is their full life story. And you got that here, which I absolutely loved. This one is just breathtaking. It was so good. So the final book on this list, my favorite book of the entire month, 5 stars all the way, I'd give it 10 if I could, is Circe by Madeline Miller. And this book is probably, I can confidently guess already that this is probably going to be my favorite book of the entire year, and probably one of my favorite books of all time, because it was so good. So this follows Circe, who is the daughter of Helios, a Titan god, a very powerful Titan god, and she's born a lesser god without any significant powers or abilities or allure like her parents. She gets exiled and banned to a deserted island where she discovers that she has the power of witchcraft. And this book has so many little stories within one big story that it's really hard to tell you any more specifics than that, but it is so good. It's such a quiet, beautifully written book. And even though Cersei, was born in this world of the gods and she has these magical powers, she still is so human in so many ways, and her flaws and her weaknesses are so relatable. Oh, it's just so good. She was like one of the best characters that I have ever read, hands down. The prose in this book, like I was saying, is really good. Like, I feel like if I had read the physical copy of this book, and if I was a tabber or an underliner, like I would be underlining or tabbing like everything. It was so good. The audiobook was done really well for this one, so if you are an audiobook lover, I would highly recommend this one. It's very quiet. It's just really soothing to me, so I loved this one. They do explore motherhood in this one as well. When Cersei becomes a mother, I thought it was just so relatable again, and just in ways that I didn't expect either. You do get to see her interaction and her relationships with other Greek gods and goddesses from mythology and the different creatures from mythology, so that was really cool. And it's just beautiful, you guys. There's a lot of darkness in here, but also a lot of redeeming light, I thought. It's a sad story, but it's really good. And if you take anything away from this video today, I know this is at the very end and maybe it didn't last this long, but you need to read this book if you have not read it, because it is so good. I know that this will be a book that I reread like over and over again, because I still, I read this at the beginning of the month, and days, weeks later, I'm even still feeling things about this book. So it was really good, and it deserves the full 5 stars and more. So that wraps up all of the books that I read in April. Like I said, I read a lot of really good ones, and I really enjoyed getting to share what I thought about everything with you. So if you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them in the comments. I will be posting a May TBR soon, even though it's already May 8 today. I would like to share with you what I'm going to be reading this month and what I'm reading. So expect that, and then you can expect a vlog with that secret TBR that I was talking about. So yeah, my first vlog style video. You can look forward to that too. So I will see you guys all later. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!